Welcome to ARGUNAS Learn. What if I told you that the safest investment you could possibly make is actually a guaranteed way to lose money over time? Sounds crazy, right? But it's true. And that's exactly why understanding investment risk is the single most important thing you need to get right before you invest even 1 rupee. So today, we're going to break down the 5 key investment risks that are absolutely critical for your real-life investing and, of course, for nailing the concepts on your NISM VA exam.
Okay, let's just dive right into that big question. So you put your hard-earned cash into a bank fixed deposit. You think, great, it's totally safe. But here's the thing. There's a hidden force working against your money 24/7. It's kind of like a slow, invisible leak in a water tank. You don't really notice it day to day, but over the years, you find that the real value of your savings is just drained away. This is why we absolutely have to talk about risk.
So, what do we actually mean by investment risk? Well, to put it super simply, risk is just the uncertainty that the return you actually get will be different from the return you expected to get. The key word there is uncertainty. See, risk isn't just about the scary idea of losing money. It's anytime the outcome is different from what you planned for. Could be lower, could be higher, or just different. It's the unpredictability that's just part of the journey.
Let's start with that invisible leak I was talking about. This is the one risk you take on by doing nothing at all, by deciding to just play it safe and keep your money in cash. I call it the silent thief, because it impacts every single one of us, whether you're an investor or not. We're talking about inflation risk.
Inflation risk is all about purchasing power. That 100 rupee note in your pocket today, well, it won't buy you the same amount of stuff a year from now. The note itself looks exactly the same, but its power, its ability to get you the things you need, is constantly going down. See, inflation is just the steady rise in the price of everything, which means every rupee you have buys a little less tomorrow. Now, this is where it gets really important. What this shows you is the difference between the return you see and the return you actually feel. The nominal return is that big, flashy number your bank advertises, 7% interest. But the real return is what actually matters. It's what you've gained after you subtract that silent thief, inflation. So if inflation is running at 6%, your real gain in purchasing power is just a tiny 1%. You've only become 1% richer in real terms.
And check this out. This shows you the long-term damage. Let's say your family's monthly grocery bill is about 15,000 rupees today. Well, assuming an average inflation of just 6%, in about 12 years, you're going to need 30,000 rupees to buy the exact same stuff. That's the mind-blowing power of compounding inflation. If your savings aren't growing way faster than that, you are for real getting poorer every single year. So, that's the risk of doing nothing. Now let's talk about the risks you face when you actually start investing. These next two are about 2 very basic questions. First, can you get your money back when you actually need it? And second, can you even trust the person you lent it to pay you back? It's all about access and trust.
First up is liquidity risk. Liquidity is just a fancy word for how fast you can turn an investment back into cash at a fair price. This risk really hits home when there's an emergency. Imagine you need money urgently for a medical issue, but all your funds are tied up in something you can't sell right away. That's liquidity risk, causing a huge real-world problem. So what causes this? Well, sometimes it's built in, like the mandatory lock-in periods with something like a PPF. Other times there are penalties, like when you try to break an FD early. And for things like real estate, the big challenge is just finding someone who wants to buy it, which can take months, sometimes even years. And here's a key point. Even something that's usually super liquid, like equity shares, can have problems. During a big market crash, when everybody is trying to sell at once, finding buyers at a decent price can suddenly become very difficult.
Next up, we have credit risk, which you'll also hear called default risk. This is the risk you face anytime you lend money to someone. It's the simple possibility that the person or the company you lend money to just fails to pay you back the interest they promised, or even worse, they don't return your original investment. So when you buy a corporate bond, you are the lender, and you're taking on their credit risk.
A really great way to understand this is to compare government bonds with corporate bonds. A government bond is seen as having almost zero credit risk because, well, it's backed by the entire government. And because that risk is so low, it offers you a lower interest rate. A corporate bond, on the other hand, always has a higher chance that the company could go bust. So, to convince you to lend them your money, they have to offer a higher interest rate to make it worth your while. This is a fundamental law of finance.
All right, now let's get to the risks most people think of when they hear the word investing. The daily ups and downs, that non-stop market roller coaster. These next two risks are all about prices constantly moving around.
Market risk is the big one. It's the risk that your investment's value will fall because of stuff that affects the entire market. For your NISM exams, it helps to break it down. You have company-specific and industry-specific risks, also called unsystematic risk. You can manage this by diversifying, not putting all your eggs in one basket. But then you have market-wide risk, or systematic risk, things like a recession or a war. This affects all the baskets, and diversification can't really save you from it.
And our fifth key risk is interest rate risk. Now this one's a huge concept, mostly for people who invest in fixed income, things like bonds. Simply put, it's the risk that when the RBI changes interest rates, it's going to mess with the market price of the bonds you already own.
Let me show you how this interest rate seesaw works. It's pretty cool. Imagine you own a bond that pays you a fixed 7% every year. Now, let's say the RBI raises interest rates. That means new bonds coming into the market now have to offer 8%. So, who's going to want to buy your old 7% bond when they can get a brand new one paying 8%? Right, nobody. To sell your bond, you'd have to lower its price, selling it at a discount. And there you have it. Interest rates went up, and the price of your existing bond went down. It's a perfect inverse relationship.
Okay, that was a lot of theory. Let's bring all of this back to the real world and see how these 5 risks actually show up in the investment products that millions of Indians use every single day.
This slide just lays it all out so clearly. That so-called safe fixed deposit, its biggest enemy is inflation risk, just quietly eating away your returns. You own a property, your main headache is liquidity risk. You can't just sell it in an afternoon. Tempted by a corporate bond paying a really high interest rate? Well, you're being paid extra to take on more credit risk. Investing in an equity mutual fund? That's a direct ticket to the market risk roller coaster. And if you have a bond mutual fund, its value is going to swing up and down with interest rate risk. And this brings us to the most important point of all. The goal of a smart investor isn't to avoid risk. I mean, that's impossible. Even holding cash has risk, right? The real goal is risk awareness. It's about understanding exactly which risks you're taking with each investment and making sure you're getting paid enough for taking them on. Now, for all of you who are studying for the NISM VA certification, let's put our exam hats on for a second. Understanding these little details is exactly what separates the students who pass from those who struggle.
Here are a few common traps I see people fall into on the exam. First, thinking FDs are totally risk-free. Now you know that while their credit risk is low, their inflation risk is super high. Your purchasing power is definitely not safe. Second, people mix up liquidity risk and market risk. Remember, liquidity risk is about your inability to sell fast. Market risk is about the price falling when you do sell. And third, thinking diversification is some kind of magic shield. It only protects you from the company-specific stuff, not the big market-wide risks.
So here's a huge exam tip from us at ARGUNAS Learn. Don't just memorize the rules. You have to understand the why. Instead of just repeating, rates go up, bond prices go down, really get why that happens. It's because your old bond just isn't as attractive anymore. That deep, logical understanding is your best weapon to tackle any tricky question the exam can throw at you.
All right, that was a real deep dive. Let's pull everything together and just hammer home the key takeaways from our session today.
So, what are the big things to remember? First, risk just means your final outcome is uncertain. Second, inflation is that silent thief that eats away at your money's value. Third, liquidity is all about how fast you can get to your cash without losing money. Fourth, credit risk is simply the chance that a borrower won't pay you back. And finally, market and interest rate risks are what cause all those price fluctuations.
That's it for this concept on ARGUNAS Learn. If this helped clear things up for you, please show some support by hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel, and definitely ring that bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the world of investing. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by NISM, AMFI, or SEBI. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Please read all scheme-related documents carefully before investing.